That food is not for you. The words cut through the first-class cabin so cleanly that even the ice in Elliot Whitmore's whiskey seemed to stop moving. A little black girl in seat 2D had reached for a sandwich with both hands, careful and polite, but the flight attendant pulled the silver tray back before her fingers could touch the wrapper. No one spoke. The girl only lowered her hand and whispered, "I'm sorry." 20 minutes earlier, before the jet bridge door closed and the engines began their low, expensive hum, Maya Brooks had stepped onto Flight 718, holding a purple backpack against her chest like it was the only thing in the world that could keep her together. The cabin smelled of leather seats, warm towels, and a sharp floral perfume coming from somewhere near the front row. It did not smell like the bus station where she had waited with her mother that morning. It did not smell like hospital soap or the laundry room where Tanya Brooks folded towels until after midnight to pay for one small thing that mattered. Maya paused at the entrance to first class, looking down at the boarding pass in her hand. The paper was creased white along the folds because she had checked it too many times. Seat 2D. Medical compassion upgrade. Her mother had circled both lines in blue pen. Underneath, in smaller writing, Tanya had written, "Show them this if they ask. Be respectful. Keep Caleb's bracelet safe." Maya touched the side pocket of her backpack, where the white hospital bracelet was tucked inside a plastic sandwich bag. Caleb Brooks, Pediatric Oncology. The letters were already fading at the edges. "You're holding up boarding," a woman behind her muttered. Maya moved quickly, cheeks warming, and slipped into 2D. Her sneakers did not reach the floor. Across the aisle, a man in a navy suit glanced at her shoes, then at her backpack, then looked away as if he had seen something that did not belong in the polished quiet of the cabin. In seat 1A, Elliot Whitmore watched from behind thin silver glasses. He had noticed her before anyone else did. Not because she was loud, because she was trying so hard not to be. He knew that posture. Children who had been taught not to ask. Twice sat that way. Still, he said nothing. Elliot had spent years learning not to mistake discomfort for truth. People lied to him. People performed need in front of him. People used tears like contracts. So when the flight attendant, Vanessa Crane, slowed beside Maya and her smile tightened by a fraction, Elliot only lifted his whiskey and watched. The meal cart came after takeoff, its wheels whispering over the carpet. Vanessa served champagne, warm nuts, linen napkins, small porcelain dishes. When she reached Maya, she looked at her tablet, then at the girl's old hoodie. Maya sat up straighter. "Ma'am," she said softly, "I think that one is mine." Vanessa's hand froze over the sandwich wrapped in silver paper. "Excuse me," Maya swallowed. "My mom said I had a soft meal." She opened her backpack with careful fingers, but Vanessa had already lifted the tray. Maya reached out, not grabbing, only receiving what she believed had been promised. That was when Vanessa pulled it back. "That food is not for you." The sentence landed across the cabin without needing to be loud. A man in 2A gave a small, embarrassed cough. Someone turned a page in a magazine too quickly. Maya's hand stayed in the air for 1 second too long before she lowered it to her lap. "I have the paper," she said. Vanessa leaned closer, her voice soft enough to sound professional and cold enough to make the child shrink. "First-class service is not something you grab just because it passes by." Elliot's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. For the first time, he saw the corner of Maya's boarding pass lying on the tray table, and beneath the fold was a logo he knew better than his own signature. Whitmore Wings Medical Program. Maya's eyes dropped to the corner of the boarding pass as if the paper itself might apologize for being seen. She did not understand why the man in one had gone still, or why his fingers tightened so slowly around the crystal glass that the ice gave one quiet click against the side. She only knew Vanessa was still standing over her, the silver tray held close to her waist now, the sandwich no longer a meal but something being guarded. "I have the paper," Maya said again, smaller. This time, and she reached into the plastic sleeve inside her backpack with the careful patience of a child who had been told that bent documents made adults stop listening. The sleeve held 3 things: the boarding pass, a folded medical travel confirmation, and a receipt from a kiosk at Detroit Metropolitan Airport. The receipt was only for $18. but the ink had already begun to fade where Tanya Brooks's thumb had pressed too hard holding it that morning. Maya placed the boarding pass on the tray table first. Seat 2D. Passenger, Maya Brooks. Under the flight number, printed in black type, were the words Medical Compassion Upgrade. Vanessa looked at it without touching it. That was the first thing Elliot noticed. People who intended to solve a problem picked up the paper. People who intended to dismiss it kept their hands clean. A seat assignment, Vanessa said gently, almost kindly, doesn't mean you understand the service level. Maya blinked. My mom said it means I sit here. Your mother is not crew. The sentence was quiet. Grupe. Neat. But it made the woman in 3C look down at her coffee, and it made the man in 2A smile into his napkin like he had just been handed permission. Elliot set his whiskey down. He did not speak. Not yet. Instead, he reached into the inside pocket of his suit jacket and took out his phone under the cover of adjusting his cuff. He angled it toward the tray table just long enough to save a photo of Maya's boarding pass and the small Whitmore Wings logo printed beneath the fold. He had signed off on that logo 9 years ago in a conference room with glass walls and catered lunch. He remembered the slogan beneath it, Travel with Dignity. Somehow, seeing it beside Maya's trembling hands made the words feel less like a promise and more like evidence. Ma'am, Maya said, and this time there was a steadier line in her voice. My mom told me if someone asks, I should show this one too. She unfolded the second paper. It made a soft cracking sound in the pressurized quiet of the cabin. Elliot watched the way she smoothed the creases with both palms before sliding it forward, not pushing it at Vanessa, not begging, just placing truth where an adult could not pretend it had never arrived. The document said Pediatric Medical Transfer, Companion Child Passenger, Soft Meal Requested, Confirmed. Vanessa's smile did not change, but something behind her eyes stepped back. That appears to be a general request, she said. Catering availability is never guaranteed. From somewhere behind them came the delicate sound of a spoon touching glass. A man stirred sugar into coffee he had not tasted. The cabin breathed in the expensive rhythm of people trying not to become witnesses. Maya looked down at the papers, then up at Vanessa. It was guaranteed when my mom paid. The man in 2A shifted. His cufflinks flashed under the cabin light. He had the relaxed face of someone used to comfort arriving before he asked for it. On his tray, untouched beside a glass of sparkling water, sat a sandwich wrapped in the same silver paper. Elliot's gaze moved to it once, then back to Vanessa. Vanessa followed his eyes and, for the first time, her perfect posture stiffened. Only half an inch, but Elliot saw it. He had built companies by noticing half inches. Maya reached into the side pocket of her backpack and touched the plastic bag with Caleb's hospital bracelet inside, but she did not pull it out yet. She seemed to decide something, the way children do when they know they have only one small card left and must not waste it. My brother can't eat the hard bread, she said. That's why she picked soft. Vanessa's tone stayed smooth. Sweetheart, I'm sure your family has a lot going on, but right now you need to let the crew work. The words were harmless on the surface. Efficient. Adult. But beneath them was a locked door. Stop explaining. Stop proving. Stop making the room uncomfortable. Elliot looked at Maya again. She did not fold the papers away. She placed the receipt on top of them, tiny and pale under the cabin lights. At the bottom, where most people would never look twice, one line read soft meal add-on, paid, and beside it was a timestamp from that morning. 6:42 a.m. Elliot's phone vibrated once in his palm, but he did not look down. He was staring at another time printed just below Vanessa's. Thumb on the crew tablet, a time that made the air in his chest go cold. Meal reassigned, 6:41 a.m. Elliot kept his eyes on the crew tablet only long enough to know the time was real, then looked away before Vanessa could decide he had seen too much. Meal reassigned, 6:41 a.m. 1 minute before Tanya Brooks had paid $18 for the soft meal at the airport kiosk. That was not a catering shortage. That was not confusion after takeoff. That was a decision made before Maya ever stepped onto the plane. Vanessa shifted the tablet against her hip and tapped the screen dark with her thumb. There seems to be a system delay, she said, though no one had asked her a question. Her voice had changed by only a thread, but the warmth she used for the other passengers had thinned into something flat and careful. Maya noticed it too. She looked from the blank tablet to the sandwich on the tray in 2A, then back to her receipt. "No, ma'am," she said softly. Vanessa's eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me?" Maya swallowed, but she did not put the paper away. It wasn't delayed. A small silence opened around the words. Even Richard Vale, the man in 2A, stopped moving his knife across the little square of butter on his plate. Vanessa leaned closer. "Maya, this is not a conversation you need to continue." It was the first time she had used the girl's name. Elliot heard that too. Some adults used a child's name to comfort them. Others used it to make the warning feel private. Maya's fingers tightened on the plastic sleeve. "My mom paid after the lady at the counter called someone," she said. "She said she had to check because my brother's food had to be soft. I remember because the clock above the gate said 6:39, and my mom said we had to hurry." Vanessa's smile flickered and returned too quickly. Airport staff tell families many things. They do not control aircraft catering. "The lady said it was already in the system," Maya replied. "She said someone up here had to approve it." That was when Grace Miller, standing half a row behind Vanessa with a pot of coffee in her hand, looked down. Not away, down. As if the carpet had suddenly become safer than everyone's faces. A thin stream of coffee trembled near the rim of the pot before she steadied it. Elliot watched her reflection in the darkened window. Fear had a shape. It lived in shoulders, in fingers, in the split second before someone chose silence. The cabin fell into an uncomfortable hush, filled only by the low engine drone and the faint clink of a spoon settling against porcelain somewhere behind them. Then Maya reached into the side pocket of her backpack and pulled out the small plastic sandwich bag. Inside was Caleb's hospital bracelet, folded once so it would fit. She did not show it to the cabin like a performance. She held it close, just high enough for Vanessa to see. "He throws up if the bread is too hard," she said. "That's why we asked. That's why Mama paid." Richard Vale slowly lowered his eyes to the soft sandwich on his own tray. For the first time, his expression changed. It was not guilt yet. It was the beginning of recognition, which was sometimes worse because it had nowhere to hide. Vanessa reached for the receipt. "Let me take that and verify it with the crew." Maya pulled it back before Vanessa touched it. Not fast, not rude, just enough. "My mom said not to give away the only copy." Elliot looked at the child then, really looked at her. The old hoodie, the careful papers, the tiny hand protecting a receipt as if it were a passport out of disbelief. He still did not know the whole story. He still did not know if the mistake began at the gate, in the catering kitchen, or inside the polished rules of the airline he was about to buy. But he knew one thing now. Maya Brooks had been taught to preserve evidence before she had ever been taught to relax. Vanessa straightened, and for one unguarded second, her eyes moved to the sandwich in 2A, then to the dark crew tablet, then back to Elliot's face. The movement was small, but it connected everything. Elliot set his phone flat on the armrest, screen down, and asked in a voice so calm it made Grace stop breathing, "Miss Crane, who approved the reassignment at 6:41? Miss Crane, who approved the reassignment at 6:41? Elliot asked again, and for the first time the question did not sound like a passenger asking for service. It sounded like a door closing. Vanessa held his gaze for half a second too long, then turned slightly toward the forward galley, where the curtain separated first class from the small polished world behind it. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, her voice lowered with the careful softness people used when trying to keep wealth comfortable. "I understand your concern, but this is an operational matter. I would hate for a young passenger to feel responsible for a simple catering adjustment." The word young landed on Maya like a hand gently pressing her smaller. Vanessa took one step toward her. "Why don't we let the adults handle this?" Maya looked down at the receipt, then at Caleb's bracelet inside the plastic bag. She did not answer. A minute later, the curtain parted and the purser, Nathan Cole, stepped out in a dark uniform jacket with gold stripes at the cuff. He was handsome in the smooth way of men trained to apologize without giving anything back. Behind him came a woman from the airline's premium relations team who had been deadheading in business class. A tablet tucked against her ribs like a legal shield. Her name tag read Marissa Holt. Elliot recognized the last name from donor dinners and operations briefings, though he could not yet place her fully. "Mr. Whitmore," Marissa said with a practiced smile. "I'm sorry this has reached you. We value the comfort of every guest on board, especially our premium travelers. Sometimes, when charitable upgrades occur, there are service limitations families may not fully understand. Families, not passengers, not Maya. Families." The cabin became smaller around the girl. Leather seats, crystal glasses, brushed steel lamps, linen napkins folded like white birds. Everything in the space was built to tell her she was the misplaced object. Richard Vale cleared his throat from 2A. "For what it's worth," he said, almost regretful but still protected by his cashmere sweater and full fare ticket. "I don't think anyone meant harm, but there are expectations up here. People pay for a certain environment." Maya's eyes moved to the sandwich on his tray, then away. Grace stood frozen beside the cart, fingers white around the coffee handle. Nathan Cole bent slightly toward Maya, not unkindly, but with the calm authority of someone removing a stain before it spread. "Sweetheart, if there was confusion, we can arrange something for you after landing. Maybe a snack box from the airport lounge. Would that help?" Maya held the plastic bag tighter. "My brother lands after me," she said. "He needed it soft." Marissa's smile tightened. "Then perhaps your mother should have coordinated directly with the medical desk instead of relying on cabin crew to improvise." The sentence was polite. It was also cruel. Maya's face changed, not into tears, but into stillness. She smoothed the receipt on her tray table with 2 fingers. "My mom did coordinate," she said. At 6:42, no one moved. Even the engine hum seemed to pull back. Marissa blinked once. Nathan looked at Vanessa. Vanessa gave the smallest shake of her head, warning him not to follow the thread. Elliot saw it. Maya saw it too. She slid the receipt forward just 1 inch, not toward Vanessa, not toward Marissa, but into the empty space where truth had been politely refused. "And the food was moved at 6:41, she added. "That means somebody took it before she paid." For the first time, Marissa reached for her tablet too quickly. Her thumb opened the service log, and in her hurry to prove control, she turned the screen just far enough for Elliot to see the full note beneath the reassignment. VIP 2A accommodation authorized by M. Holt. Marissa Holt froze with the tablet angled in her hand, and the note stayed visible for only a breath before she tilted it back against her blazer. But a breath was enough for Elliot. VIP 2A accommodation authorized by M. Holt. The letters did not shout. They sat there in clean airline font, quiet and official, which made them worse. Marissa smiled again, though now the smile seemed to arrive half a second late. "That is an internal notation," she said. "It would be inappropriate to interpret it without context." Elliot did not answer immediately. He looked at Richard Vale's tray. The soft sandwich rested there, half unwrapped, its white bread dented by the edge of a silver knife. He looked at Maya's receipt, the one she had protected with both hands. He looked at Caleb's bracelet folded inside the plastic bag, small enough to disappear if someone decided it did not matter. The cabin waited for him to become angry. He did not. Anger would have given everyone something easy to manage. Instead, Elliot became very still. "May I see the receipt?" he asked Maya, his voice lower now, not commanding, not gentle in a way that made her smaller, just asking. Maya did not hand it over at once. Her eyes flicked to Vanessa, then to Marissa, then back to him. "My mom said not to give away the only copy." Vanessa's lips tightened. "Maya, Mr. Whitmore is trying to help." Maya did not look at her. "People say that when they want the paper." The words were so quiet they almost vanished under the engine noise, but they reached every person close enough to hear. Elliot's face changed by a fraction. Not surprise. Recognition. He reached slowly into his jacket and removed a black leather card case. From inside, he took one of his business cards and placed it on Maya's tray table, blank side up. "Then don't give it away," he said. "Just let me look while it stays with you." Maya studied him with the solemn caution of a child who had learned that adults could smile and still take things. Then she flattened the receipt with her palm and turned it toward him. Elliot leaned closer. Soft meal add-on. Pediatric medical transfer. Paid. 6:42 a.m. Kiosk C17. The number C17 made something stir in him. A detail from years ago pushing up through a place he had tried not to visit. His daughter Clara's last medical flight had departed from a gate near C17. He remembered the vending machines, the cold coffee, the way the hospital bracelet on her wrist had been printed with the wrong discharge time and no one wanted to fix it because the system had already moved on. Maya watched his eyes stop on the timestamp. She reached into the plastic sleeve again, but this time she took out something smaller than the receipt. A torn baggage tag folded around Caleb's hospital bracelet. "There's another time," she said. Vanessa made a soft sound. "Sweetheart, we've already looked at enough." Maya ignored her. She unfolded the baggage tag. On the back, in Tanya Brooks's rushed blue handwriting, was a note. "Ask at C17 if soft meal still says confirmed. Woman on phone said crew moved it but don't tell Maya yet." Elliot read it once. Then again. He did not understand the whole shape of it, but he understood the shadow it cast. Somebody at the gate had known. Somebody had warned Tanya quietly. Somebody had told a mother that her son's meal had been moved before she paid for it, and still let her pay anyway. Marissa reached for the tag. "That appears to be a personal note, not an official record." Maya pulled it back against her chest. "It's my mama's handwriting." The cabin went silent in a different way then. Not embarrassed. Afraid. Elliot looked at Marissa Holt, a woman he had trusted on panels, in boardrooms, beside charity banners with his own name printed in gold. He remembered her telling him last spring that premium donor comfort had to be balanced against compassion optics. At the time, he had nodded because the phrase sounded responsible. Now he heard what it had really meant. Marissa's phone buzzed once in her hand. She glanced down too quickly, and Elliot saw the sender name before she turned the screen away. Vanessa. Then Vanessa, standing only 3 feet from her, deleted something with her thumb. Elliot saw Vanessa's thumb move across her phone, but he did not look at the phone. He looked at her face. That was where people usually hid the thing they had just erased. Vanessa lowered the device with the same professional calm she had used to pull the tray away from Maya, and Marissa tucked her own tablet against her side as if the conversation had reached its natural end. "Mr. Whitmore," Marissa said, "I can have my office follow up after landing. There is no reason to let a minor catering concern disturb the cabin." A minor catering concern. Elliot let the words settle. They were clean words. Boardroom words. Words that could make hunger sound like scheduling and humiliation sound like procedure. He glanced at Maya. She was carefully sliding her mother's note back around Caleb's bracelet, protecting the handwriting before protecting herself. "I don't want money," she said. Suddenly, no one had offered any, but somehow everyone understood why she said it. Her cheeks warmed, yet her voice held. "My mom said if they made a mistake, they should say it. That's all." Richard Vale looked down at the sandwich he had not finished. Grace still stood beside the cart, unmoving, as if one wrong breath might cost her job. For a moment, the cabin was filled only with ordinary sounds. The low breath of the engines, the whisper of air through the vents, the tiny click of a spoon settling against the edge of a coffee cup. Outside the oval window, thin rain streaked sideways across the glass, silver lines flashing under the wing light before vanishing into darkness. Elliot turned his phone over in his palm. He did not raise his voice. He did not stand. He only opened a secure message thread and typed 3 words to his private attorney. David Rusk. Pull cabin records. Then he added, Flight 718. Crew tablet logs. Gate C17. Whitmore wings. Preserve everything. David replied in less than 10 seconds. Already on it. Elliot locked the screen and looked up just as Marissa gave Vanessa a small nod. the kind of nod people used when they believed the room had been contained. Vanessa reached for Maya's tray table. "Let's put these papers away now, sweetheart. We don't want them getting lost." Maya placed both hands over the receipt and the note. "They're not lost." The quietness of her answer made Elliot's throat tighten. He thought of all the papers that had gone missing in his own life. Clara's discharge form. The corrected transfer request that had supposedly never arrived. The complaint he had filed after her last flight. Returned to him with 4 gentle paragraphs explaining that every policy had been followed. Every policy had been followed. He had hated that sentence for years without realizing he had later built entire committees full of people who spoke the same way. His phone vibrated again. He glanced down. David had sent a screenshot from an archived service memo. Elliot opened it under the shadow of his hand. The memo was dated 6 months earlier, signed by Marissa Holt, and copied to Vanessa Crane. One line was highlighted: "Compassion passengers. Seated forward must be managed discreetly to prevent premium guest discomfort." Below that was another note, colder than the first: "Avoid visible hardship in cabin presentation." Elliot read it once, then again, feeling something inside him shift from suspicion into certainty. Not loud certainty. Not the kind that needed to announce itself. The quiet kind. The dangerous kind. He looked at Maya's worn hoodie, at the plastic bag holding Caleb's bracelet, at Grace's terrified hands, at Richard Vale's untouched half sandwich, at Vanessa standing as if she had done nothing more than protect the elegance of first class. Then he looked at Marissa Holt, the woman he had allowed to stand beside him at charity galas, the woman whose reports had told him the program was compassionate, efficient, dignified. For years, he had believed she was protecting vulnerable families from chaos. Now, with Maya Brooks sitting 2 feet away from a meal that had been taken before her mother even paid for it, Elliot understood the truth with a coldness that made him almost breathless. Marissa had not been protecting the children from the system. She had been protecting the system from the sight of the children. Elliot did not move for several seconds after he understood. Movement would have warned them. Anger would have given Marissa something to manage, something to file away later as an emotional reaction in a difficult cabin. So he stayed seated in 1A, one hand resting near his untouched whiskey, the other holding his phone flat against his thigh where the screen could not be seen. Then he pressed the call button. The soft chime sounded too polite for what was happening. Vanessa turned at once, relieved to return to a script she understood. "Yes, Mr. Whitmore?" Elliot looked at the empty space on Maya's tray table, then at the half sandwich beside Richard Vale. "I'd like the soft meal assigned to passenger 2D. The thin pause. Vanessa's smile stayed in place, but it no longer reached both eyes. "Unfortunately, that item is no longer available." Elliot nodded once, as if accepting useful information. "Because of a catering shortage?" Vanessa hesitated. Marissa's phone vibrated in her hand. "No." One looked at it. The tiny buzz seemed to crawl across the leather silence of the cabin. "Yes," Vanessa said. "A catering shortage." Elliot reached for the linen napkin beside his glass and unfolded it slowly. "Then please enter that into the service log under your employee ID." Vanessa's hand stopped halfway to the tablet. It was such a small pause that most people would not have noticed it. Maya noticed. She had been watching hands all day. Her mother's hands counting crumpled bills at 6:42. The gate agent's hand covering the phone receiver. Vanessa's hand pulling back the tray. Now Vanessa's fingers hovered above the tablet like the screen had become hot. "That won't be necessary," Marissa said smoothly. "We can correct the record administratively after landing." Elliot did not look at her. "I asked Miss Crane to log what she just told me." Richard Vale shifted in his seat. Grace had moved closer without realizing it, the coffee pot still held against her waist. The red camera light on the galley safety monitor blinked once, reflected faintly in the chrome trim above the cart. Elliot's eyes flicked toward it, then back to Vanessa. Maya leaned toward him just slightly, not enough for anyone else to see. "She didn't say shortage before," she whispered. Elliot turned his head a fraction. "What did she say?" Maya kept her eyes on the receipt in front of her. She said it wasn't for me. The words were simple. Child simple. That was why they could not be improved. Elliot let them sit in the cabin. Then he said, Miss Crane, before you log it, would you repeat exactly what you told her when she reached for the food? Vanessa's smile finally faltered. Mr. Whitmore, I don't recall the exact phrasing. I do, Maya said. Her voice was not loud, but every person in the first 2 rows heard it. Vanessa looked at her then, really looked, and something cold entered her expression before she could hide it. Maya, adults are trying to resolve this. Maya's fingers closed around Caleb's bracelet inside the plastic bag. I'm not stopping you. The phone on Marissa's tablet tray vibrated again. Then again, a message thread lighting up and disappearing under her palm. Elliot's own phone lit silently in his hand. David Rusk had sent one line. Cabin service recorder active. Audio retained for quality review. Elliot placed his phone face down and reached for his water glass, though he did not drink. All right, he said calmly. Let's make this easy. Miss Crane, log catering shortage. Miss Holt, confirm you authorized no reassignment. Mr. Vale, confirm that the soft meal on your tray was ordered for you before boarding. 3 reasonable requests. 3 simple doors. No one moved through them. Richard's face darkened. I didn't order anything special, he said at last. Came out low, almost unwilling. Vanessa turned toward him too quickly. Marissa closed her eyes for 1 second, then opened them with the expression of someone recalculating damage. Elliot looked at Maya. Did the gate agent say anything else? Maya nodded. She said, Don't let them tell you it disappeared. The cabin went still. Grace's hand rose slowly to her name badge, as if reminding herself who she was supposed to be. Then she stepped forward and placed the coffee pot down on the galley counter with a soft, final click. Vanessa stared at her, then at Elliot, then at Maya. And in that moment, with the tablet unlogged, the camera light blinking, and the billionaire in one waiting beside a child who still held the only copy of the receipt, Vanessa understood that Maya Brooks was no longer standing alone. Vanessa understood it first, but Marissa understood it deeper. The cabin had changed without anyone raising a voice. A child's receipt, a half-eaten sandwich, a blinking camera light, and one calm question from seat 1 had turned first class into something that felt less like a cabin and more like a hearing room at 36,000 feet. Grace stepped forward, her face pale, and placed both hands on the service cart as if she needed the metal to keep standing. Mr. Whitmore, she said, barely above the engine hum. There's a quality recorder in the forward galley. Vanessa turned sharply. Grace. Grace flinched but did not step back. It records crew interactions when the service panel is open, she continued. For training review. It was open when Maya reached for the meal. Marissa's expression hardened into something polite and dangerous. That system is not intended for passenger disputes. Elliot looked at her. Then it should have nothing useful on it. No one answered. Grace swallowed. I can access the last 15 minutes. Vanessa's hand moved toward the galley curtain, then stopped when Elliot stood. He did not stand quickly. He simply rose, tall and quiet in his charcoal suit, and the cabin seemed to lower around him. Maya looked up from her seat, still holding Caleb's bracelet in its plastic bag. For a moment, Elliot thought she might be frightened by what she had started. Instead, she lifted her receipt and said, She should play it from when I said I had the paper. Grace nodded once. Her fingers trembled as she touched the service panel. A small loading circle appeared on the screen. No one breathed normally while it turned. Richard Vale stared at the sandwich in front of him as if it had become something alive. The file opened with ordinary cabin noise. Wheels over carpet, china touching china. Vanessa's service voice, Maya's small one beneath it. Mom, I think that one is mine. Then Vanessa, clear as glass. That food is not for you. The cabin did not move. The recording continued. First-class service is not something you grab just because it passes by. Maya's breathing came next, soft and uneven, followed by the rustle of paper. Then another voice, lower, from the galley entrance. Marissa's voice. Handle it discreetly. Vale was promised a quiet cabin. Do not make the child the story. Elliot's face slowly lost color. The sentence entered him in pieces. Do not make the child the story. Not the meal. Not the error. The child. Maya had been a problem to manage before she ever opened her mouth. Then the recording played one more line. Vanessa's whisper, meant only for Grace. Charity upgrades always come with paperwork. Just keep her from making a scene. Elliot could not speak. Not because he lacked words, but because too many arrived at once and none of them were clean enough. He saw the gala banners. His signature on the foundation launch. Marissa standing beside him under gold letters that said, Dignity. He saw reports filled with smiling families and soft language, while somewhere behind the photographs, children like Maya were being instructed to disappear politely inside the very program built in his daughter's memory. He looked at Maya, and the worst part was that she was not triumphant. She was watching him carefully, as if still unsure whether the truth would be allowed to stay. Grace stepped back from the panel. Marissa opened her mouth, then closed it. Vanessa's eyes had gone bright, but her chin remained lifted in the last posture of control. Elliot reached down and took Maya's receipt only after she nodded. He placed it beside his untouched whiskey, then laid Caleb's bracelet next to it, still inside the plastic bag. Two small things on a first-class table, lighter than paper, heavier than every contract he had ever signed. His phone vibrated. David Rusk's name appeared on the screen. Elliot answered, his voice calm enough to chill the whole cabin. David, he said, eyes still on the bracelet. Preserve the recording, and meet this aircraft at the gate. David Rusk was waiting at the gate when Flight 718 landed in Seattle, not with police lights or raised voices, but with two airline compliance officers, a sealed evidence envelope, and the kind of silence that made uniforms straighten. Elliot stepped out first, then turned back and waited for Maya. She walked slowly through the jet bridge with her purple backpack against her chest, Caleb's bracelet in one hand and the receipt in the other, as if letting go of either one might let the truth slip away again. Vanessa did not meet her eyes. Marissa Holt tried once to speak to Elliot near the aircraft door, something about context, optics, and avoiding public escalation, but Elliot only looked at David and said, no private settlement. Preserve the log, the recording, the memo, and every reassignment tied to Whitmore Wings. That was the end of her control. By midnight, Vanessa Crane had been suspended pending termination for falsifying service records and mistreating a minor passenger. Marissa Holt was removed from all authority over the medical travel program and placed under investigation by the Airlines Board for discriminatory internal policy and misuse of charitable funds. Richard Vale, whose name had been used as the reason for Maya's meal being taken, gave a written statement before leaving the airport lounge. It was short, uncomfortable, and necessary. He had not ordered the sandwich, had not needed it, and had watched a child be treated as if she had stolen it. But Elliot did not allow the ending to become a press release about bad employees. The next morning, in a quiet conference room at Seattle Children's Hospital, he sat across from Tanya Brooks while she still wore the same faded work jacket she had worn on the red-eye from Detroit. Her hands looked tired before the rest of her did. Maya sat beside her mother, close enough that their sleeves touched, while Caleb slept in a nearby hospital bed with a blanket pulled to his chin. Elliot placed the receipt on the table, not as evidence now, but as a promise he had failed to honor. Mrs. Brooks, he said, your daughter should never have had to defend something you already paid for. Tanya's eyes filled, but she did not let the tears fall. I just wanted them to treat her like she belonged there. Elliot nodded, and this time the nod cost him something. He arranged a patient advocate for Caleb, legal counsel for Tanya, full reimbursement for the travel charges, and a protected medical travel plan that could not be changed by cabin staff or premium relations. He also did something no donation gala had ever required of him. He gave Tanya a seat on the oversight board for Whitmore Wings, with pay, authority, and the right to review complaints from families who had once been too afraid to file them. A week later, the memo was read aloud before the airline board. Not summarized. Read, avoid visible hardship in cabin presentation. The room was silent when it ended. Elliot did not look away from anyone. "That sentence was written under my name," he said. "So the correction will be under my name too." The policy was abolished, every medical compassion case from the past 2 years was reviewed, and families who had been denied services were contacted directly, not by public relations but by attorneys and patient advocates. Months later, Maya visited Caleb's hospital room carrying a new lunchbox, blue with silver stars, but inside it was the same kind of soft sandwich wrapped carefully in paper. Elliot stood near the doorway, no cameras, no staff, no speech prepared. Maya opened the lunchbox, gave half to Caleb, then looked at Elliot and said, "You listened before they made you." Elliot could not answer right away. Outside the window, Seattle rain moved softly down the glass, and inside the small bright room, a child who had once been told the food was not for her sat at the table with her family, eating quietly, while the truth that power tried to hide had finally been heard.